Now, earlier today, the Labour Party set out plans for the first ever rural crime strategy to tackle issues blighting communities outside of our towns and cities. The move follows research which revealed the countryside crime rate has surged by 32% since 2011, with a total rise of almost 130,000 reported offences, including almost 30,000 offences of criminal damage and arson. Joining me now is former Head of Rural Protection's Dai Davies, but that's not why we're speaking to him. It's because he is a former police officer and lives in rural Snowdonia, and Jonathan Roberts from the Country Land and Business Association. Welcome to both of you. Thanks for joining us on the Independent Republic. Dai, let me come to you first. I mean, I've lived in rural Wiltshire. I've lived in parts of Britain which are so deserted, the only thing you really see are sheep as opposed to people. But the crime wave has really become something. Tell us what you know about where it is, what it's like where you are.
Well, two of my neighbours I was talking to today, I'm stuck between two big farms. One of them had £6,000 to £8,000 worth of equipment stolen 6 weeks ago, and the other one had an honesty box full for his eggs that he sells for the main road, and they smashed into that. They didn't take it once, he reset it, and sadly they took it again, and there was CCTV evidence, but unfortunately, for better or for worse, the police couldn't catch those responsible. It is dire for these people. They have enough to cope with, dealing with various rules and regulations at the moment, including the Welsh Government, who want to do all kinds of things to them. I really feel sorry for them. And it seems to me, having done some research into this over some time now, that there seems to be a need for a national coordination between all the forces to tackle this. Some forces are very good, particularly in the northeast. Some are dire. And the problem is there is no real classification to say this happened on a farm or this was rural crime. And an organisation has come up with a study saying there needs to be 10 key points. I haven't got time to go through them now, but essentially the police have got to get their act together. The College of Policing have to get their act together and realise this is a crime that's blighting our society, particularly in the rural areas. I can't remember when I last saw policemen in and around this area. And when you do, they're community support officers who have neither the powers to stop and search or do anything else. It's a complete waste. We need real coppers doing roadblocks late at night, stopping. Many of the people, they know who they are. They come from families going back from 7 to 70. They're just criminals and they get away with it. And as we've heard, the criminal justice doesn't seem to realise that and lock them up for long periods.
No, indeed. Jonathan, let me bring you into this. You're from the Country Land and Business Association. Is that your experience as well, that, you know, a lot of rural areas are just not very well protected in a way and they're not very well policed?
Yeah, and that really emboldens these criminals. And we should remind ourselves, really, we're not talking about petty crime. We're often talking about very seriously organised crime, well-organised crime, committed by smart people who are ultimately, though, thugs. And there is often an implicit or indeed explicit threat of violence that comes with this sort of crime, whether it's stealing millions of pounds worth of machinery from farms, whether it's undertaking hair coursing that they are live streaming to illegal betting markets, often in places like China, and that goes right through to a wide variety of other sorts of crimes as well, down to fly tipping. So until we have enough coppers on the beat, and until we have enough people relatively close to where the crime is taking place, then I don't really see how crime can come down in rural areas. And I take the point about Labour having a new strategy, but I'm always a little bit conscious of politicians saying that they're going to come up with a strategy at some point in the future. We need that strategy now. We need that coordination now, and we actually need a certain degree of cross-party consensus. The rural crime is important.
Yes, exactly right. And Dai, let me come back to you. I mean, you've got experience of working within the police, obviously, itself in various different situations. But in terms of rural policing, I mean, is it the fact that we've got all these constabularies that are spread around, different cities, different counties. There's no real coordination, it seems to me. And if you're getting your tractor stolen or you're getting some expensive machinery taken away, obviously it's going to be sold somewhere. There must be a market for it. It must be possible to track where this stuff goes.
Well, absolutely. And it is serious crime. And the serious and organized crime group should get a handle on this, because clearly you're talking millions and millions of pounds worth of property, not just the petty theft that goes on, but stealing Range Rovers, stealing parts to various vehicles, agricultural. This is going on under our very noses. And unless you've got proper intelligence and the structure to gather that intelligence and then translate that into operational activity, you're not going to catch these people. But I say again, there are well-known people and gangs who, from the age of 7 upwards to 70, they know who they are. They do get arrested now and again. They get paltry sentences unless we have a deterrent effect. You've just been discussing prisons, but I'm afraid to say you can have as many Labour or Conservative strategies under the sun. Unless the police get their act together, and it's fragmented, sadly, in this country. Some are much better than others, but we need to get a grip on it. I know there's a shortage, they say, of policemen and women, but equally so, the crime commissioners, they're all coming up for election. They ought to be looking at doing this. It is a priority as far as I'm concerned, because without farmers, where would we be?
Indeed. I mean, they're all too busy at demonstrations and protests in London, it seems to me, which happen about every 3.5 nanoseconds. But Jonathan, let me come back to you, because it must be an extra cost for an awful lot of businesses rurally who need to get more insurance cover. If they do lose items, their insurance is going to be going up. They might even be employing security of their own. Is that the kind of thing that's happening?
Yeah, well, I think it was around £50 million worth of machinery alone that was stolen last year. And that's before you get into even the sorts of crimes some people would have thought was being historic, like sheep rustling, which is totaling several millions of pounds now. And that's really when you're talking about farms that are only just viable, they're only just turning a profit, they're seeing their costs go up and they're seeing the prices that they're getting for their produce going down. Losing 100 sheep, losing 50 sheep, losing that bit of kit that they've invested in, it's really the difference between that business being viable or not. Now, as Dai says, without our farmers, we go very, very hungry very quickly. So, this problem isn't just about farmers, but it is really about land, and it's about the isolation of rural communities. And we need to be able to just make sure that we're spreading our police resources appropriately across the entire country. We're spending the right money in the right places. We're putting the right resources in the right places. Hitherto, unfortunately, we hear some horror stories of rural police officers not even having a pair of wellies in the boot of their car, not even having a torch in their car, not being able to undertake some of the basic police work that they'll need to do in a rural landscape. So it's good that we've got the potential for a strategy now, but that strategy needs to get very granular very, very quickly if it's to have the desired impact.
No, quite. And Dai, let me come back to you. I mean, without getting overly political, I mean, the Labour Party are not known for their sort of knowledge of rural matters, are they? I mean, most of their strongholds, certainly in England, are in the cities. I know that you've been blessed with a Labour government over there in Wales for quite a few years now. But do you have any confidence in them understanding the rural needs of the country?
Well, no more than I have about their 20 miles an hour philosophy, which they're going to spend millions now. Well, yes, quite. No, the problem is many of them don't represent. And in fairness to Plaid Cymru and others, the Welsh nationalists, at least they have some knowledge of the farming community. I'm not being disrespectful to Labour, but equally so, under the Conservative government, we've had little or no success in tackling these people, aided and abetted by these useless judges we often have and magistrates who simply don't understand, as your other presenter said, the sheer scale of it. And I keep coming back to intelligence, but intelligence is graded information. Unless forces grade it and there's a national system and structure, and if the Labour Party can do that, it'll be one step further towards recognising the extent. They say 50 to 60 million. I would double that because so many people, if you look at the NFU survey, they say most people, or 30% plus, don't bother reporting things to the police
that's the
because
other
nobody
thing.
does anything.
Di, I appreciate your time. I appreciate both of your times. Thank you very much. Jonathan Roberts as well. Dai Davies, great to talk to both.